Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator news and updates, and we have quite a bit to talk about. Fenix updates the A320, Latin VFR and Aerosoft's A330s, FSReborn's TL3000, as well as some big updates on PMDG and some potentially sad news while exciting news out of the PMDG gate, so stick around. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides from Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Overkill simulations, watch us as we fly. Overkill simulations, a thrill will never die.
All right, my friends, first off, as always, there are chapters to everything down below as we do with the news. So let's start talking about Fenix. So they have pushed out a new version of the Fenix A32X series of aircraft, the A32 family, of aircraft provided by Fenix. So that includes the A319, 320, and I feel like I'm missing one, the 321. But let's talk about some of the bigger things that they did. So first off, CPU optimization. So that's obviously a big one that's going to give increased performance with the aircraft, as well as internal scheduling of display rendering. So the displays that are in the aircraft are also going to be improved as well. There's quite a few things that have been added. Added cargo to the distribution. They added AOC free text, as well as AOC ATIS requests via VATSIM and IVAO. So for you VATSIM flyers, that should be a nice update for you guys. They added a new source of GPS data, updated the Navstar tracking algorithm with more current data, fully prepared for GNS constellation when the real A320 is able. So they're already thinking ahead of the game here. They fixed a bunch of things, everything from approach altitudes not being entered based on the QNH, fixed values like 0.11 being rounded in the nearest RNP field, fixed stars not being reloaded or cleared after changing runways. I mean, they've done a ton of fixes, it seems like, to the MCDU and overall flight management computer. So there's been quite a lot of things that have been adjusted there. Let's see here. The biggest thing that you guys will have to check out the entire changelog. It's a massive changelog. They've also adjusted art and sounds, fixed A319, A321 safety cards showing on the A320, fixed flap rods on the A319 and A320, fixed overhead bin missing, polys on high density cabins, fixed odd colored paint on the wing of the A319. I've actually seen that on somebody else's video, funny enough. And fixed the ATC model not being said correctly in game. EFB, they've improved the cargo distribution to target a more optimal center of gravity, improved takeoff performance based on airport elevation, and fixed the EFB being blank on startup if the previous session was quit with the EFB sleeping. I ran into it. It's actually part of the reasons why I haven't flown it in a minute. There's also been a very large change to the FADEC system within inside of the aircraft, meaning that users should no longer see discrepancies between what the FADEC assigns as a thrust rating prior to takeoff and the rating that was actually observed during the roll. So what you calculate is what you should actually see. So those are just a handful of, again, a very, very large changelog to this particular aircraft. As you guys know, the Fenix, and maybe you don't know, the Fenix A320 is arguably the best simulated A320 that's currently on the market, and I would almost dare say for any flight simulation, whether it be X-Plane or Prepared or Microsoft Flight Simulator. So it is definitely worth updating if you guys have not as of yet. It is a fantastic aircraft. The fly-by-wire version of the A320 is certainly a fantastic way to start, and I will never, ever, ever take credit away from the fly-by-wire team for all that they have done and continue to do with that aircraft. But when it comes to being the most challenging and the higher fidelity of the two, obviously, you know, payware companies would be expected, and I think that Fenix really did take that challenge on, would be expected to make sure that they are far above a free version. And I don't know that I would call it far above, but it is definitely a better modeled version of the A320. It also comes with a bit more challenges than the fly-by-wire does in the aspect of it tends to run into a few more bugs and things like that. But again, I want to stress that both are fantastic. The fly-by-wire, as you guys know, is a free version of the A320, which is a great way to start. And if you decide that you like the A320 and you really want to get into something much more high fidelity and challenging, the Fenix is a fantastic rendition of the A320. Next up, Latin VFR has launched their version of the A330. Now, with Latin VFR, guys, it's really important to remember that with Latin VFR, you typically get very, very good texturing, very, very good details and modeling as far as all of the visuals, but you typically get what I would consider basic cockpit functionality. You are not going to get a study level aircraft with Latin VFR. That's not what they're about. And the thing that I've always respected about Latin VFR is they've said that from the start. Okay, they're not looking to compete with, a developer like PMDG, right? They're not looking for study level simulations of their products. They're looking for something that's going to be fun, mostly functional. They typically have very, very detailed soundscapes, as well as, again, their visuals on the aircraft are always very fantastic. And again, I would say basic to moderately above basic functionality in the cockpit, enough where you are busy setting it up where it's still fun to fly, but you're not going to get, I would even say, near the functionality of, for example, bringing back to fly-by-wire for a second, the fly-by-wire A320 certainly has far more functionality than, say, any of the Latin VFR aircraft. Latin VFR aircraft are more aimed, I would say, to the simmer that really wants to get a fun flight experience, tool around the cockpit for quite a bit, get a general understanding of how these aircraft operate. And certainly this is fun for a wide-body aircraft. But not necessarily want to do the deep dive and get into the difficulties and challenging the learning curves of what some of the bigger aircraft and more, I should say, high fidelity aircraft would require you to gain in order to complete a flight successfully in them. But again, their visuals are always fantastic. The cockpit is still a ton of fun. The nice thing about these aircraft, especially with Latin VFR, for example, if you are familiar with the fly-by-wire A320, you can typically jump into any of the Latin VFR aircraft and get going in a matter of minutes. That is the nice thing I will say about Airbus is their flight decks are pretty much one, them all kind of thing. That now you guys know what I mean. Don't take that literally, but you can definitely get around the cockpit and get yourself up and moving. So the Latin VFR aircraft, the A330, is available in the Microsoft Marketplace. At the moment, I believe it is only inside the InSim Marketplace, so keep that in mind. Now we have an aircraft that I'm going to touch on very briefly. This is the Aerosoft's A330-300 CEO base pack for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, I was given a review copy of this aircraft, and I have chosen to hold off for the time being, and unfortunately, I'm going to give you guys the same recommendation until it has been updated. As though the aircraft is definitely fantastic and well on its way, this is not to put down Aerosoft in any way, shape, or form. I wish them the best of luck, and they typically have a really good track record of putting out good aircraft. I think this is a situation where the aircraft was maybe pushed out before it was time, given that, whether it may, whatever the reason be, schedule constraints, whatever, but the aircraft definitely is experiencing quite a few bugs just in the little bit that I tried to use it. I was doing a video on it, funny enough, just this evening and decided not to. And again, I don't want to misrepresent the company, and I don't want to shoot anybody down right out of the gate, but I am going to tell you guys that at the moment, I would hold off any purchases of the A330-300. It has quite a few issues. It had issues with calculation numbers not being quite accurate, thrust issues that I experienced on my takeoff roll, and some very odd behavior when trying to capture the glide slope and localizer into Los Angeles, California this evening, to the point where I had to do a go around and bring it back in and manually step the aircraft in, almost like an RNAV approach until the glide slope was captured. So there's quite a few bugs and oddities with the aircraft. I would certainly not call it ready for what we would call prime time. So if you guys are interested in the A330, stay tuned on their page. Keep an eye on Aerosoft and what they're doing. I'm sure they'll have everything resolved rather quickly. Again, they are a good company with a very good reputation in flight simulation. They've been around for quite a long time, so this is in no way a slap at them or a shot at them. This is just simply a recommendation to hold off on the purchase of the A330-300 until they have given it an update, because I want you and Aerosoft both to get the best experience possible from both the seller side and the consumer end of things. And right now, I just don't feel like the aircraft is ready. Again, there were quite a few bugs. There were only a couple that I mentioned there. And just to make sure that I wasn't alone, I actually watched a few other videos, including one that was done by FS Elite, and we all seem to be on the same page. I noticed multiple pilots experiencing similar issues to what I ran into, and I just don't think the aircraft is ready. So I would say that right now, buyers beware of the A330-300 for now. As the thumbnail to this video stated, for now. I'm sure it will be resolved. I'm sure Aerosoft will get things ironed out. Again, very reputable company, been around for a long time. I just think this was a situation where the aircraft wasn't quite put through all of the quality control steps, but as we content creators and everybody else is posting back to them, I'm sure it will be resolved very soon. FSReborn has launched another aircraft into Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that is the TL3000. It was pretty cool. When I first saw this aircraft, I thought it was a Cessna, but it is absolutely not. It is the TL3000, and I found this to be rather interesting. This aircraft can be picked up for right around $25 from the NSIM marketplace. That is one of the things that really does bum me out. I wish that they would give the option to purchase third party. The only reason why I'm so anti-marketplace is because the updates tend to come significantly slower than what you can find by purchasing third party. So anytime you guys are purchasing your aircraft, think about that. Yes, it is easier to have all of your aircraft managed inside the sim, but you could find yourself waiting significantly longer than others for some critical fixes, depending on what's wrong with the aircraft. Now, one of the things that is very interesting is this is probably the ultimate version of a glass cockpit aircraft that you could ask for here. I have never even seen this one. It does not even look like, that's not even the G3X, if I don't think it is, but that is a very, very glass cockpit, which kind of bums me out. I've stated before, I prefer the old analog steam gauges when I can, but that is the way of the future. It is 2024, and I know I need to catch up with the times. But this aircraft looks absolutely fantastic. Again, reminds me very much so of a Cessna, so I imagine you're going to get a very similar flight experience. It has a range of around 700 nautical miles. You can see that there is definitely a GTN 750 integration with this aircraft, as well as what looks like a Garmin series of some sort. I'm not sure what that one is. I don't know if that's the G3X, the G-Touch, but it definitely looks quite different than what I have seen before. But again, remembering that I tend to stray away from glass cockpit aircrafts. But inside, the aircraft looks absolutely perfect. All the detailing and right down to the stitching on the yoke handle there looks gorgeous. There was clearly a ton of attention and effort put into this aircraft, as with the FS 500, so it really doesn't surprise me. They did a wonderful job with their turboprop aircraft. The EFB looks rather cool. The fact that we have a maintenance window obviously gives the impression that there is state saving as well as wear and tear on the aircraft that you'll have to be monitoring as you are flying. So that is very, very nice to see. I think the more that we add to the simulator as far as requirements of a simulation pilot, as long as they are kept as an option, the better. And the reason why I think it's critical to keep it as an option is because there will always be those simmers who don't want to worry about maintenance or how they left the aircraft or whether or not they shut it down and it's currently flying, 400 miles off the coast with no pilot in it because we quit the sim early. So as long as they keep the state saving and maintenance requirements as an option and something that all simmers don't have to pay attention to, I think it's a wonderful feature. I personally prefer it. I think it adds a ton more to the simulation experience that is really necessary to keep the interest high, especially when you have career add-ons, especially with missions and things that are going to be coming with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. The more effective flight simulation environment that the developers can create for the aircraft, I think is going to just absolutely improve their sales when 2024 comes out, because it's going to increase that desire to be a part of that experience. So FSReborn, I'm definitely going to be picking this aircraft up. Even though it is in the InSim marketplace, I will be grabbing it because for me, it hits all of the buttons and I'm very curious. So stay tuned for a review on this aircraft probably in the next day or two because it really does look like a lot of fun to fly. Okay, we have a couple of big updates coming out of the PMDG house, but first we'll talk about the 777 Freighter. 777 Freighter, according to Robert Randazzo, the lead developer for PMDG, has stated that the Freighter version is now in the beta testing, and hopefully they have an hopeful release of prior to the end of October. So within the next 20 to 22 days or so, we could possibly have the freighter version of the 777 in our hands, which I am very excited for. Freight is definitely a cool one. Just gives a different kind of aspect to flying these big aircraft. The 777 guide is finally just about done. I ran into a very serious issue, so I had to rewrite a bunch of pages. But fortunately, time has allowed me to keep working on it, and we are just about complete. So super excited. They will go right hand in hand with flying this aircraft. The 777 is a ton of fun to fly. It's a big, heavy, powerful aircraft that really shines. But now let's get into some of the more pressing development information coming out of PMDG. So one of the first things out of PMDG's house and lineup of questions has been Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Microsoft and Asobo have not released any kind of early SDK to developers. So unfortunately, they are unsure as far as what the status will be, other than they have stated that it is very likely there will be some significant work that has to be done on the aircraft or their product line in order to make them fully compatible with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, meaning things like their career features as well as their external walkarounds. They have stated that their first requirement, or goal, I should say, will be to obviously just make the aircraft as they are compatible with 2024. So first it'll be make sure they fly and work as they currently do in 2020, and then later the next step will be to add the features such as the external walk around and career modes and things like that. So, but first step will just be the aircraft as we see them today, and as they function today in 2020, working in 2024, and then they will update the aircraft to match all the new features and capabilities that 2024 is going to bring to the table. But again, they were not given any kind of early access to the software to preemptively make those aircraft available, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. As far as the 737 MAX from PMDG, that has been temporarily put on hold. Their enterprise division of development team has been pushed onto a higher pressing project that unfortunately had to take their attention away from the 737 MAX. However, Randazzo did hint that this enterprise project that has taken attention away from the MAX could lead potentially to another development project for Microsoft Flight Simulator following the release of the 747. Now, once this enterprise project is complete, obviously that team's focus will be redirected back to the 737 MAX, but for the time being, their attention is elsewhere, so the MAX has been put on hold. Speaking of the 747 has been, work has been continuous for the last year, and they are hoping to have an internal testing as well as visual modeling and cabin modeling hopefully before the end of this year. So the 747 is progressing. There is no release date or aimed release date for the Queen of the Skies as of yet, but development is continuing. And again, they're hoping for internal testing before the year is over. So given their release schedule, I would probably my best guess, and I have no solid information. This is strictly a guess, my own personal opinion, and nothing more, nothing less. So my own personal opinion on when we would probably likely expect to see something in regarding to the 747 that's concrete, I'm guessing probably February or March. But that could be being very optimistic, or it could be being pessimistic. Who knows? But I will certainly be very excited for that. The 747 is an aircraft that I'm sort of shocked we haven't seen yet, but I get it. It's quite the challenge. The 777 itself was definitely another one that was worth it. 737, that line had to come first. It's the most popular, right up there with the Airbus A320, the two most popular commercial aircraft in the skies today. I would say the A320 and the 737. Not the most notable, but most popular. I mean, obviously, I would say the most notables would be the Queen of the Skies being the 747, the King of the Skies, some have dubbed the A380. So anyways, so quite a bit of change coming from PMDG. So we'll just have to see what happens. Again, the 737 MAX currently put on hold. 777 freighter hopefully in our hands before the end of October. 747 developments continuing and hopefully goes into internal testing before the end of the year. My pure self-speculation with no other facts or information to support it is to say 747 by March of 2025. As always, my friends, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and found it entertaining at the very least, if not informative. And I wish you guys the best. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you in the next one.